Everyone, and welcome to week 3. Hopefully, I have everyone's journals from last week. If not, please make sure you hand those in as soon as possible. Remember, the point deductions for late journals is 10% per day up to 50%. So it is really worth your while to get those in as soon as possible. This week, we have a number of readings to discuss and a lesson, obviously. We also have a discussion forum due, but no written assignment. This week, we are going to discuss the rise of the early civil rights movement for people of color, mainly Black Americans. So let's go ahead and start. This week, obviously, you want to click on content. Then, obviously, you want to go through week 3, launch the unit. Now, this week, there are a number of readings, and this can't be helped because it is sort of a big lesson. There are a number of authors, that are very important to this movement. I'm going to pull up some of them. First, let's go ahead and start with the souls of Black folk. Now, the way you say Du Bois' names, it's not Dubois, it's Du Bois. At least that's how many people have said to pronounce his name, including W.E.B. Du Bois as well. Now, we will be reading, I believe, and I'm going to go ahead and check that. Okay, so you are assigned chapters 1 and 2, but I do want to briefly discuss chapter 3 because I feel like it's really important. And the lesson this week doesn't have anything on Booker T. Washington. Booker T. Washington was also somewhat, during the time period, important for the civil rights movement, the early. Many people disagree with his views, even today. Basically, he was a Black American as well, and he believed that minorities should, instead of trying to obtain rights within the United States by force, either through their voice or through physical violence. Instead, he believed that minorities, including Black Americans, should try to work hard to gain the goodwill of European or white Americans. And many people disagree with that because some people felt like his views put too much faith into white Americans, and that includes W.E.B. Du Bois, and I'm going to refer to him as Du Bois from now on. So I did want to bring that up because there was sort of a academic argument between Booker T. Washington and Du Bois, and it's quite well known, so I feel like you guys need to know about that as well. But that is not part of your reading. You're only reading parts 1 and 2. Then I also wanted to point out that Du Bois was the person who started the NAACP. And I'm not going to go into that. I'm assuming most of you know what that is, but I would like you to go through this website. Then also by Marcus Garvey, and we'll go into the debate that he had with Du Bois later on. But this basically is written, obviously, by Marcus Garvey, excuse me. And it's very similar to the Declaration of Independence. So he was playing on that when he wrote this as well, that issues that Black men and women, although he doesn't really mention women here, women have experienced through the hands of white men. And let's also include women with that as well. So that's why I want you to read this. It's kind of an interesting play on the Declaration of Independence. Then another writer that's very important is Ida Wells Barnett, and this is her biography, but also there are a couple of readings from her. First is The Lynching Our National Crime. It's speaking out against this practice in the South. It's hard to believe that this was going on, but it was, unfortunately. And it's just she's the one that brought it into the attention of the United States. So this is an interesting speech, and it's not overly long. So I would like you to go through it. And then let me move back. You will be reading some poetry that focuses on issues facing um, Black America during the early portion of the 20th century. A person who is very important to the Black American movement in terms of its literature is obviously Langston Hughes, who brought in issues that were facing, that minorities and people of color were facing during this time period. And another thing, a controversial aspect of Langston Hughes. First of all, he agreed with much of what Du Bois was saying, but some people of color, or and including Black Americans, believe that he was putting too much information out there, showing it wasn't that Black Americans, obviously they were equal, but also he wanted to show that they have a culture and poetry and music that is worthwhile in its own right. Okay, so he was an important part of, let me make sure it's on here. I'm not sure if I have the information here, unfortunately not. So but he was an important component of the Harlem Renaissance. Okay, so it wasn't in terms of the Harlem Renaissance, it brought in the importance of Black culture, music, literature, poetry, and Langston Hughes was an important component of that. Some intellectuals believed that this was a mistake and this was harmful to the civil rights of people of color, minorities, and Black Americans, because they wanted to prove that their culture was similar to white culture. However, Langston Hughes said, no, our culture is equal, but it's different and has its own value. Okay, so that's just a little something that Langston Hughes brings to the table. Plus, his poetry is incredible. So, then we'll be reading a couple of poems from County Cullen. What's interesting about County Cullen is that you probably have read one of his poems, And Yet I Do Marvel, which basically brings to the forefront about how difficult it is to be a Black poet during the early portion of the 20th century. The poets we are reading this week also focus on issues that Black Americans and people of color faced. However, he actually wanted to be known as not a Black poet, but a poet in its own right. He wanted to be a poet in its own right. Unfortunately, he did not realize this during his lifetime, but obviously today he is known as a poet, capital P poet. And so he's an important component of our readings. And let me bring out, see if I'm missing anything else. And obviously, here's another reading by Ida D. Wells Barnett. So I would like for you to take a look at that, as well as some information about James Weldon Johnson, which is another one of our readings this week. And there is also a timeline. So as you can see, there is a ton of readings this week. So there are a ton of readings this week. So go ahead and try to get through all of it. I know there's a lot, but you can do it. And actually, I'm going by looking at that previous sentence I said. There is a ton because it's a singular noun. So the verb would be is. Okay, sorry, I'm correcting myself as I'm going through the lesson. So you can see that these aren't exactly professional lessons. I'm not going to go through all of this because, here's something I didn't discuss, is that Marcus Garvey was kind of in a debate with Du Bois. Du Bois wanted to not force, but basically tell white Americans that it's time, we're tired, we deserve to have the same rights as white Americans. We are equivalent. We are just as important, just as needing to be recognized. And Marcus Garvey was slightly similar in that he was saying basically, we're never going to get equality. So it's time that we move back to Africa. So that is where the sort of debate came about between the two. And let me go through and see if there's anything else I missed. Okay. I actually think I got everything in there. All right. So this week you have a discussion. It's just like the regular discussion. And then it's kind of interesting because you kind of discuss the debate between Garvey and Du Bois. I hope you enjoy the readings this week. I hope you learn a lot. I know I certainly have going through the readings myself. And it's an important week, even though there's a lot of readings. So I hope you enjoy it. Please let me know if you have any questions. I'm here for you, and I'll have those journals graded by the end of the week. Have a great week, everyone. Talk to you soon.